Well, welcome everybody to the informational webinar. Very excited to have you online today. And I'm going to spend most of the time today kind of talking at a high level why Icor. And during the Q&A session, we can talk more tactically about some of the things you might be doing in the course. But I thought it would be a good idea to just start with kind of giving you a little bit of a background and why we even offer the program and what the primary purpose of it is. So before doing that, I'm going to highlight a distinction I would like to make between invention and innovation. I think this is really important in the context of what we do. We often say that invention's about creating things, and we've probably all been inventors here on the phone. We've worked on technology, we've developed new things. But what we really want to be, so to speak, at least in this sort of SBIR program, is innovators. And when we talk about innovation, we really mean finding practical applications in the commercial marketplace for the inventions, right? And it's not that pursuing research for research's sake is not a good thing, because it certainly is. But when you're in the SBIR program, the ultimate goal is to get a small business started and your technology commercialized, of course. So I wanted to highlight that because in sort of the common language, popular press and whatnot, these two phrases or two words are often used interchangeably, but for us, we don't consider them to be the same thing. The key distinction is, again, finding unmet need in the market. Now, here's the real innovation challenge. I'm going to first share with you a perspective that I borrowed from the corporate space, which basically highlights the fact, and don't worry about trying to read this, that the newer something is to you, the newer the market and the newer the technology is, the more likely it is that you'll fail in your new product effort. And in fact, if you kind of pay special attention, startups often live in this upper right-hand corner where the market is new to you and the product or technology is probably also new to you as well. And if you look at what venture capitalists will often tell you, and this is borrowed from a venture capitalist website, about 90% plus or minus a few percent of startups tend not to make it after 5 years. It's pretty daunting. But one of the things that I would ask each of you to think about as you look at a curve like this is there any reason that the curve should look like that? Is there some sort of physical law of nature that drives it? And of course, we're going to argue that, of course, there isn't such a thing. But in this course, one of the things that we highlight is, what really kind of drives that failure rate. And again, for technologists like yourselves and like me and others on the line, we often think if we could just make the technology work, we're sure to find people that'll want it. We know what we're doing. We've been doing this for years. Maybe it's even a problem that we've had. But the reality is most startups don't succeed because of lack of customers. It's actually not because the technology doesn't work. It's because we can't find enough people that find the technology useful that solves the actual problem that they have. Or maybe it solves a problem they have, but it's not a top priority problem for them. So you just don't get enough traction. I really like this next slide. I'm going to not go into the top 10 reasons startups kind of typically fail. I'm going to really zoom in on the top 3 and talk about them fairly quickly. The first one is what I just talked about, right? Building something that no one wants, which is just simply saying not enough people want it. It's not that nobody wants it. It's just that really probably not enough people want it. Number 2 is hiring poorly. We don't talk a lot about that in Icor, but I will say that going out and doing the work that we ask you to do is a great way to sort of pressure test a team to make sure everybody's on the same page and pulling together, working towards the same goal. But number 3, I think, is really important. Number 3, this concept of lack of focus really tends to bite people. To be honest, even those teams, and we typically see them in NIH cohorts, that think they're very focused, ultimately learn that there's a subsegment of the market where they should really start. And I can share some examples with you later there. But even the teams that come in that appear to be very focused on a particular patient indication, working with a particular type of physician, will often find out that it's a subgroup that they really need to target at the beginning. It's great to show that you have lots of opportunity in multiple places you can go over time, But when we are really going to market, we want to be laser focused on finding that beachhead opportunity. So lack of focus is going to be sort of one of those themes we talk a lot about in Icor, and we really try to help you overcome that. So our ultimate goal, high level, is to improve your odds for success. And I want to highlight that I'm saying improve. I'm not saying guarantee. The reality is it's impossible to guarantee that we can successfully help every team find, the market that they ultimately want to get to. The reality is we're trying to improve those statistics, if you will. One of the other things that's equally important that I didn't highlight in my slides here is that it's not just finding great opportunities, it's also ruling things out. So one of the best outcomes of Icor is when you rule something out and decide it's not worth your time or effort, whether that's a particular customer, potential application of your product, or maybe even a feature of the technology. Ruling things out is often the most important first step for many people. And again, it's going to be one of the focuses of Icor. So how are we going to improve your odds for success? Primary tool that we're going to use in this course is this concept of doing customer discovery. And when we say customer discovery, we often like to shorten it and say, get out of the building, right? Get out of the lab.
Disclaimer, per COVID-19 public health guidance, Icor at NIH participants are not expected to physically get out of the building for interviews. Instead, the customer discovery portion of the program is expected to be performed virtually.
Go talk to the stakeholders that you expect to be serving, particularly the people that are going to be using or benefiting from the use of your technology. Make sure that you understand from their perspective what their top priorities are, what they are trying to do better, and what they're prioritizing. You will often have companies come in that say, we're working on a really important problem, and when they go out to the market, they realize that, yes, it is an important problem. However, the people working on it today feel pretty satisfied with the solutions they already have. So it may be important, but you also have to make sure that it's something they're very unsatisfied with in terms of their options today, and they're looking for better ways to do it. Anyway, enough of that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that later, and also in the course if you come in. Now, primary point of getting out of the building is really listening to customers. It says talk to customers, but the primary point here is to listen. And if I had to summarize what makes Icor special and sort of this lean innovation approach that we use inside of Icor as a primary technique, I would say it's really this concept of going out, talking to people, listening, using a systematic approach to identify what we're going to call unmet needs. And we'll spend a lot more time talking about specifically what that means in the course. But this is the goal for just about every startup, of course. Any new product introduction, right, is to find those unmet needs in the market and make sure you're targeted and well aligned with them. Now, as it turns out, for many of you, myself included, you may have followed one of the most common approaches to building a new product, which is what we call the build, show, and hope strategy, right? I'm going to build it, I'm going to show it, and I'm going to hope people buy it. And shockingly enough, this happens quite a lot, even with experienced companies, even with experienced entrepreneurs. So we're really trying to help you move beyond this approach, not use the build, show, and hope, and use something we call build, measure, learn. And we'll talk again more about that in the course. But in essence, what it means is through small tests and experiments, initially through conversations, later down the line through perhaps prototype testing, you make sure that you're headed in the right direction and you validate that you're onto the right path before you try to build the perfect solution and then sell it. Bottom line, get out early, talk to people, make sure you understand what the real true needs are in the market. So a couple more things quickly before I wrap up. When we say customer discovery, I like to break it down and be a little bit more granular in terms of what you're trying to discover, and I'll highlight a few of those things here. When we say really understand what the customer needs and design a value proposition for them, we assume that you can do these steps. These are not as easy as they first appear, and people often want to jump directly from here's the customer I have all the way to the last bubble here, which says I'm going to design a value proposition for them. What we're going to do is pull this apart, make sure you understand this discovery process that you really do understand the job that someone's trying to get done. And when I say that, I don't mean their literal job title. I mean what they're trying to accomplish. What would they hire your product or service to do? What's the job they're trying to do with it? Once you determine that, you have to understand how they would judge any solution. And that's that sort of middle step. What are the metrics they're looking at? How do they make decisions? What are the criteria they're using to choose solutions? Are you going after the things that they feel like they really need most? So by following this somewhat systematic process, it is iterative, but it is a systematic approach. We think we can move you towards a better ultimate end solution where your value proposition has been validated. And that's the primary goal of Icor. I would honestly say we spend most of our time making sure the teams are headed towards the best beachhead opportunity where their capabilities align with the needs in the market. Once you do that, then other pieces of the puzzle can be pulled together. If you do that well, you'll have a good idea of who the customer and the value proposition is, and then we can move on to other aspects of building out the business. In Icor, we will spend some time talking about these other areas. You'll learn some things about these other areas, but we will stay very laser focused on making sure you really know who the proper customer is, you really understand the needs they have, and you validate that you have something that they're going to care about. So with that, I'll wrap up with a quick quote from Richard Feynman, one of my favorite scientists, who said, "I have approximate answers and possible beliefs and different degrees of certainty about different things, but I'm not absolutely sure about anything." So I use this quote to highlight that although it's a systematic way to approach innovation, we believe Icor is definitely that. There are no perfect solutions. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is reduce that uncertainty to a level that you believe is acceptable and helps you improve your odds for success. And that's really what Icor is all about.